Yeah. You know, the next one. He told me he lied. To see if he would do it. Oh, okay, oh, yeah. To you. Yeah. And I'm looking for the truck. He's old. I mean, he's like really doing what I thought you know. I think it's
I'm not trying to throw in the air, like you know stuff. One of them is stepdad is my dad.
Well, that's.
But I don't try to work because I know he knows. Yeah. He's still upset.
Yeah, we go too far.
Do you have pages 16 to 18?
Oh.
Short copies next week.
I sent it to me. Sent it to you. Give me a second.
How come you take a copy of somebody else's and just go to the website?
No, this is this one. This is. He sent me a copy of the draft text.
Because you do copy of.
Huh?
I can hear you.
He sent me a copy of the text. Give me a quick second.
Used to be what?
But he ain't sticking. No, the more we do this. Do a short. He was 18. He was trying. I was going to be still married.
I never just saw that on some of the stuff I was bad. Yeah, I knew people that were in it, but that's how I.
Good thing you do.
Let's go check out the
I
email.
didn't buy one, but I did have something too. But
I was one of the play songs. I was one of the ones that little songs. I was one of the ones that little was it? I was in New York.
Sorry. That's all.
I didn't give me this stuff free. I was just like, $3 or nothing, just like, read it.
Yeah, because the brothers did that, I would push the boat, everything in the nation. Cut for the cost of the nation.
There's stuff in there that, some stuff in there like what you just now.
Well, it's really that, because it's that from the right information.
No, I didn't.
Oh, no, I gave it.
Like that, it has to.
Yes, okay, cool. Okay.
I know,
Where they came from, they might have came from something else, but I don't know. I'm saying. So he was.
I sent it to you.
Oh, wait, hold on. No, that's not him. They're not.
That's what was brother Bruce Banks. Let's see. You know, I got that. So I think this should be. This is the
They got your box.
no, this is probably had a last name.
Yes.
Yeah, my name is I'm not going to do this. Wavy Egypt. But at the end of the day, not go 23 and never took it further back to the mountain. I'm too deep in Mozambique, which means that if they came up into a lady with the continental rebellion and the black hair, as well as local judges, but there was being You got this country. And she named her mother Jewel. So she had no other name.
Anyway, you know Tyson Becker, doing what it is.
Yeah, he's Asian.
His grandma's Chinese. So he don't look Chinese. He doesn't look it.
Because his black genes are so strong. You know, if you didn't know the mother was black, you would.
Human interesting. It looks like Philippines, somewhere like that, Madagascar.
Oh, wow. Yeah, Madagascar. Wow, we got some coffee this morning. Here we go.
Man, had to, bro.
I said, we got some coffee. Where'd you get it from? Oh, yeah, go get a
I
coffee.
just heard just really I just heard just really so he was surprised.
It's too happy to Middle East. You can call no. No, you can put man. I'm a wise hello.
A lot better.
It's cold outside. No, it's burning up 11, 20 degrees.
No, it's
I don't get it. Beautiful properly. That's my blood.
There you go.
It's the connection, right?
Young boys. They have their shirt on.
Well, last time I come home, right? See those 4 guys, young boys, outside, right? So sit around. 8:30, right? And they stand outside by the car talking. First they come to mind, like, why you inside? For one.
He was trying to play macho and stuff. Making all that.
You know what? When I was young, you know, Willow Jack and all that stuff. But this kind of whole, I think, I don't know.
It's cold, cold.
I got my mom's budget. When I put my car thing said 6 degrees. You got to talk balmy 7 by the time I got to the rest. And it wasn't no wind. It's just straight. But then shot this is short lived because I'm talking about 50. For women.
You know, I lived in Chicago, and it was 40 degrees below zero with the wind chill factor.
I remember I went to sail there in 75 in Chicago. Right? It was so cold. I was confused.
Yeah, the ice was on there.
I was confused.
Chicago had plans.
It's going off that lake.
And the cold front of that down.
Exactly. I was like, I called a friend of mine. She's in Norman last night. And the weather we had 2 or 3 days from now soon. Because the temperature goes from west to east. So she says kind of vomiting now, so we'll get that in a day or two. I don't know. It's with all that German stuff.
Well, maybe it was one of them. I don't have a problem with cold. Just when it snows, you gotta walk in it, you gotta drive. It's just a warm up.
Well, this I call this point A to point B route. You can go to crazy details.
An announcement to people online.
What?
I just need to make an announcement to people online. 1 second. So welcome everyone. In terms of, I enabled a chat feature here. So on the left side of your Hangout screen, if you're using the Hangout option, so there are 2 differences, right? If you use the Hangout invitation, you should be able to chat and interact with us. If you use the YouTube option, which I sent you, you can only use it one. You won't be able to really chat on YouTube. But if you use the Hangout option, you should be able to ask questions, which I would transmit over to the presenter in show. To use the chat feature on the left side of your YouTube of your Hangout window, you should see like a text box with a blue box with white lines in it. That's for chat. You should be able to click on that to enable the chat feature. Let me know if that works for you, inshallah. I put some information in the group chat that you can use to communicate. So really switching back the camera to the other side.
You gonna talk on this thing?
That one was.
That was a pod 1 or a pod 1.
Yeah, I don't know if that was a hot one compared
Warm. was just funny. This is February, we're supposed to have it on COVID, but in a couple of days, it's going to 50 something. The idea of having bacteria and stuff around. Yeah, so it's needed so that we can come into.
Remember last week we were shorting those last pages? Remember we were shorting those like last few pages? I think
Yes, it's needed.
11, 12 is, I think I typed 11.
Maybe, I'm sure.
Okay.
Right, because this is the information we're getting from the discussion groups.
What is this one? What is your face?
He was trying to bring us
Right.
back. Turn.
I can give you, you'll just have kind of double, because I made them, double-sided, so it's 11, 14.
Yeah, I'm bringing his glasses.
11, 14.
You know what, if it says, it says.
You're cute.
Which number?
Yeah, we working in the same room. I got kids from marriage, but I can't, I found, huh?
Where do you stop?
My wife will have it.
Okay, so wait. Okay, so I'm gonna give you, hold this for a second, I have a front part.
You ever met Malcolm?
Where do you?
Nah,
start?
perfect.
14, okay.
You ever seen him in person?
So let me give you the back part, and I'll bring that.
I'm a therapist.
Yeah.
You did it like that.
I keep that.
You did it, that's another one.
Where do you stop? Where do your pages stop?
12, wasn't it?
14 should be the last page. It's, number 24 is the topic, but 14 is the last page. So I'll give it to you.
You know that, see, it's like a-
Your last page is 10?
That's the one I have.
So then that's the next, add it.
Okay, all right, thank you.
11, 14. What's your last number?
Right, it's the same.
Oh, that one, you didn't tell her I didn't get it.
From what I understand.
I think it's the number. I'm gonna give you the,
Yeah,
part one.
You know what, let me, it's in here. You gave me a whole new pack.
Did I give you your, you want to take your old? Usually that's what I'm trying to do.
Do you have a new one?
I can give you, the other, keep what you have in hand, what I have over there is the beginning part.
All I have is this.
Keep that.
Keep that.
Keep, this is the beginning. This is the
Okay.
beginning.
You know what, this is, it's funny that.
If you don't, I have more of the beginning over there.
Okay, let me.
You're not new to the game.
Yeah, cough, it smells good. That's
Oh,
wild.
that's for,
But another,
Please.
I mean, if you want the book, you can get it, it's $17, but that's what those.
How are you doing your
oh, yeah.
If you have the Queen babies and everything, I'm gonna give you about that much and that much.
He said this one was online and you buy it,
You can get a, you know, my baby, too much.
Okay, you go.
Yeah,
This one here, you have
Here you go.
60. I go to the one on, this one, because I'm coming here, I want to one on balance.
the last number of the
It's
highway.
like going toward the expressway. That's why I used it because the below there was all crap.
You know, when you go on,
Right.
on the food.
Right. But speak over at 34 in Chestnut.
Okay.
Or 30, 30, what's that? One, that says you go by the VX, it's one there too.
Okay.
No problem, those are parking, you know, that's.
You got siblings.
Yeah, got brother too.
They got shit.
Yes, I'm uncle all over the joint.
How many people said they still need the beginning, just 2?
They be hitting you up. Yeah, I need $1,000.
Yeah.
Have a nice,
Well, Actually, fortunately, they don't. But they still get in my pocket, like, and they need stuff, like, my nephew. About 8 years ago, his furnace went, right? He thought he was tough in that. I said, boy, you must have been crazy, man.
Especially the kids don't touch.
Right, so I got in my furnace. So, you know, stuff like that. My nephew's like, to his car broke down, right? So he's gonna call AAA. I can't have people AAA, he's gonna get, he's gonna go rent a U-Haul, the total itself. That's it. So let me use my AAA, right? But, see,
This is the front half.
I asked him, I said, how long do they pay for off? He said, I said, okay, you owe me $100.
Yeah.
And you say you $50, maybe $100. $2 is what the stick. I rent a car for him, so we pay it, right? That's for my credit card. So needless to say, you get on that business. Yeah, he got some responsibility to me.
How you young? How old is it?
George is about 23.
Oh, yeah. It was funny when we was that age, we didn't think that was young. You get over here. I get it now.
Sound like
Oh, come on, look it up. His own.
I grew up in the desert, man.
Huh?
I grew up in the desert.
yeah. So it's really shocking your system, isn't it?
This is the reverse. I'm on front. Grew up in the desert. It's cold.
Oh, it's cold in the desert.
Right.
Is it? You can't be cold in the desert. Oh, I brought my screwdriver with that, didn't
You did? How's everyone doing today?
you?
Okay, so we looks like we have a few new people. So we're gonna go back around the room. So we can get to know each other's names. Because you know, sometimes I have you talk to each other and it's good to know the person's name that you're talking to. Instead of just saying, hey, Muslim. Right?
What's up?
Right. So we'll start with Jabir. Go ahead.
Abdullah Jabir.
Abdullah Jabir. Alhamdulillah. Hakeem.
Hassan.
Hakeem Hassan.
Right.
Okay.
Muhammad Rashid Ali.
Muhammad Rashid
Ali.
Aliyu. Y'all heard that? You don't ever want to find yourself on the receiving end of this brother correcting you about his name. I make sure you pay attention.
You gotta say the whole thing.
Muhammad Rashid Aliyu. Don't say Abdul Rashid.
Yeah.
No.
Abdus?
Don't. I'm telling you.
Don't go with the A part.
Just say Muhammad, and then start with Muhammad. Don't say Rashid.
I gotta tell you.
He getting your eye. Burn out on me.
Get one of these. I mean,
Kaisa Abdullah.
Faisal Abdullah,
Sabria,
Sabria
Abdul Kabir,
Abdul Kabir,
Sabur Abdul Kabir.
Sabura,
James Abdul Rahman,
Alaikum,
Stephanie Cameron,
Stephanie Cameron,
Rashida
Regina what?
Thor.
Thorne. Y'all do have the same last name, right? No, okay. Threw me off for me. Go ahead.
I should do. Hamdi Mackey.
Amir Abdullah.
Lisa Mackey.
Who's that? Who's that?
It's my Hassan Mason, man.
Okay, Assalamu alaikum, Hassan.
Fatima Abdullah.
Fatima Abdullah. Jada Muhammad. All right, so now we got that out of the way. We're going to talk to each other a little bit. Today's question is based off of what we've heard or read. How can we get better at being dependent on Allah? Based off of what we've heard, read, or learned, how can we get better at being dependent on Allah? Another way to frame that question, what does it mean to depend on Allah? What does that mean to you? So think about it, share it. So Amira and Nafisa, you guys talk. Fatima and Jaydat, Hamdia, Aisha, you guys talk. Sisters, y'all talk. Sister Stephanie and Sister Janisa, you guys talk. Sabora, and you talk to your daughter. And then Ice and Vernon and the three brothers. Just some general ideas. It's not a right or wrong thing. It's not the answer. But just personally, what do you feel that means? And who do we have online?
Oh, we have about, we have Sister Saida, Yana Naima, Kenneth Cox, and Madupiola.
Okay. So did you type the question?
Yeah, they're hearing you.
They're hearing me? Okay. All right. Assalamu alaikum to the online group. All right. So let's go. We'll take a couple of minutes to talk about that.
Okay, go ahead.
All you gotta do is, in my opinion, take a moment, pause and think, you don't control everything.
Right.
You know, so, and no other human will control them.
True. Right.
Because even you may think, I know fortunately, it happened to me. It wasn't a lump, a conscious decision that I made. It was just like a situation I felt like that by being in that situation, had to do certain things to stay there. But initially, I just said, well, I'm going to ministry. And even when I was in situations that had me stay there, it was still a mercy that I wasn't being enough.
Right.
I just try to be.
No problem. Are you about to solo?
Let me just remind people online to type the response.
Yeah, you should put it on it. I don't know what over. I did
I can already again.
Take 1 more minute, inshallah.
Right. Take action and do something to change whatever it is going on. As opposed to saying, I don't know what to do.
Okay, so inshallah, let's get some feedback. Let's get some feedback. So I heard a pretty intense discussion over here. So either one of you brothers can share.
Well, I started off by saying, you have to look at what you have first and know that it came from Allah first. So you depend on Him, but then you have to depend on Him again. And I also thought about the hadith saying, have faith in Allah, but tie your camel. So you still have to do what you can do and depend on Allah. So it's always going to go back to Him because it started with Him. So I mean, you got what you have because of Him, and so that's how you continue to do everything else. You just have to put it in perspective and realize it. So that's what I said. There might be more to it. I don't know, that's simplistic, but.
Okay. You want to add anything, Jared?
Well, what I responded to him and I told him that I read somewhere that dependence on the law, we have to view it in a way that it was described as the bird. The bird every morning, it gets up and it praises Allah. And then it leaves its nest and it never returns to its nest without being full. And that even when the bird spreads its wings, Allah is putting the wind under its wings. It's not because it's flapping that it gets to its destination. Allah is placing that wind under its wings, so He guides it to its sustenance every day. So the bird does this without trying to rationalize where it's coming from, how it's just innately just has hope, and it moves out, spreads its wings, and Allah never fails it. So I guess internalizing a lot of times as to the things that we have already and that we're dependent upon Allah for outside of ourselves is not really as complicated as if we look inside at ourselves and say, well, I woke up, Allah did that, I'm dependent upon Him for that. So I think that reflecting on that can, help us improve our understanding of we don't have to worry that Allah's going to provide for us.
Good. Anybody else want to share that we see? Okay, Dad, we hear from a young person, a young whippersnapper. Let's hear what you guys say.
Well, I would say, I think to be dependent on Allah.
Speak up just a little bit.
To be dependent on Allah means to just reflect on Him and remember Him with everything that you do.
Mm-hmm.
And I was just thinking right now, it's deep because every the human being itself is
it's completely dependent on Allah, because everything that happens, like even within our body and stuff, can't happen without Allah's will and permission. So like we're totally and completely dependent on Him every way. Everything that happens around us.
Fatima, do you have anything you want to add?
I think she summed it up very
Sister Stephanie, Sister Janisa, either one of you?
We were talking about the idea of recognizing that we really don't have control over everything. It's our nature to want to do and be and have control, and that we don't. And so we could sort of get that and then just sort of spend the days, nights, evening time just occurring and just, being able to recognize that Allah has the control. And that's tough.
And that sort of connects to what Brother Jabir was saying, right? The metaphor, which is in the hadith of the bird. And you hear this a lot in Sufi circles, right? Like you be like the bird or the leaf in the wind. But see, we said that we're not floating in this class, right? Our feet are on the ground, and I don't mean to say that lightly, but to really drive home the reality of how hard it is to depend on Allah. It sounds easy, but because of the human makeup, our reason, our intellect, Sister Stephanie said our belief that we can do it, I got it, I'm in control. And the things that we tell ourselves, sometimes these things are lies, right? But we say it because sometimes that may be the way we figure out how to face the day for whatever reason. And also all of that is human nature, so it's okay. However, when we start talking about, and when Allah tells us to depend on Him, it requires that we think about something. Before we figure out how to depend on Allah more, how to trust Allah more, we have to answer a very hard question. And the very hard question, or the very difficult question is, do I trust Allah? Now, of course, if we were to answer that question in a group, everybody would say, yes, of course. What do you mean, do I trust Allah? No, we're not going to answer it with any kind of pressure. But privately, in your heart, because a lot of this discussion is about the nature of our relationship with Allah. And whether we have one or not, whether it's good and needs improvement, good and needs improvement, it can get better, or bad and needs improvement, so it can be good. But we cannot escape the fact that we all must have a relationship with our Lord. And the relationship is not just nested in the 5 prayers, although the 5 prayers are a part of that, of course. But if we don't have a relationship with Allah that roots us in our faith, the ramifications of that, it's like a domino effect. So my relationship with Allah will inform how I stand before Allah in prayer. So if I don't have a good relationship with Allah, and I'm running to the prayer line, it is conceivable to believe that I'm just put my head on the ground. Because somewhere I was told I need to put my head on the ground. But what we're talking about now is an understanding that it's not magic, right? That prayer is important because prayer has a purpose. And we'll be talking about the purpose of Salah in a couple of weeks. But right now, keep in mind that the rooting question that we have to answer in our hearts is, do I trust Allah? Do I trust Allah the way the bird trusts Allah? Because that's the metaphor. That's the meaning of the metaphor. The bird does not doubt for a second that if it leaves the nest and does what it is naturally and instinctively told to do, or programmed to do, it's going to get a worm. As a matter of fact, I don't even think that there's such a thing as a bird not getting a worm. I'm not an expert on birds, so maybe statistically it's possible that the bird leaves the nest and comes back without a worm, but that's such an old proverb maxim that I doubt it. It's always that the early bird gets the worm, right? Which is interesting that you brought that up, because sometimes there's a conflict between that level of trust, which is not easy to attain because of what Sister Stephanie said. That's the reality of our hearts. And we have to accept the reality of our hearts first, before we start talking about all the other stuff, the lofty stuff. We got to start with me. Who am I? Do I believe that Allah got me or not? And we should be honest, and we should say, if we don't believe it, we should say, I don't believe that Allah got me. Oh, Allah, help me with this. Right? Because all of the pretense is not beneficial. We can do it with each other, but it's not beneficial to the relationship that matters. Right? And if I do trust Allah, then we ask Allah to help us trust Him more. Because ideally, we want to be like the bird. Why? Why do we want to be like that bird in the hadith? The bird has no worries. And oftentimes, what drives us insane, what drives us to do what we would not normally do, what drives us even to murder, sometimes human beings will do horrible things because of stress. Stress will kill you. And sometimes we just worry ourselves to death. Worry. I got food, but I'm worried. I got something to drink, I'm worried. I got a house, but I'm worried. I got money, but I'm worried. I'm worried so much that it becomes a sickness, not just of the body. So medically, doctors will tell you that stress is a killer. And I'm here to tell you that stress is a spirit killer as well. Now, stress is normal. And a little bit of stress is good for everybody. It's when we overstress to the point that we forget what? Allah got me. Especially, and this is the point, Hakeem, that you brought up, and I said sometimes there's a conflict. We heard this hadith before, which contains another metaphor, right? Have faith in Allah and tie your camel. Right? I remember one time I taught this hadith. The brother said, Imam, I got a question. How can I even practice this hadith? I don't have no camel. No, he was saying. No, because sometimes we hear stuff literal and we think it's literal. Like, it literally means to tie a camel. What if I don't have a camel? So we had a good laugh, because this hadith is a metaphor, right? It was an actual incident that happened. So you have the hadith that Jabir mentioned, that if we really trusted Allah the way He should be trusted, this is what that hadith says, He would provide for us the way he provides for the birds. They leave the nest empty, hungry, and they return full. That's the full hadith. Then you have the other hadith, and the backstory is that a man came to the mosque, right? And in those days, the mosque was real simple, and because people showed up on animals, they had a little post for people to tie their animals to so their animals wouldn't run away. So the man shows up, and I can imagine that what happened to him is what happens to people sometimes with religion. What I mean by that is sometimes we forget the work part of religion because we're looking for the miraculous stuff, the magic, right? And sometimes we forget that sometimes the magic is internal and the magic is the feeling that only is the result of this relationship with the Lord, right? So the man shows up. He's like, I'm going to meet the prophet, man. So he walks away, doesn't tie his camel because he's running to meet the prophet. So one of the companions said, man, whoa, go back and tie your camel. The camel's going to run away. The man said, no, I want to ask the prophet. So he asked the prophet a question. He said, should I leave it and depend on Allah? Or should I tie it up and depend on Allah? And the prophet said to him, what? Have faith in Allah and tie your camel. So he gave him practical advice. What's the practical advice? Well, let's contextualize it. Qais goes to temple in his car that he just bought. He parks his car on 15th and Oxford Street. No slight, again, my North Philly folk, love y'all. You're in the room, right? But you park your car, Jabber, 15th and Oxford, brand new car, shine, you got it washed. You don't lock it. You said, Bismillah. Allah got me. The Imam said Allah got me. The Imam said trust in Allah. And you leave your car unlocked. What's going to happen? What could happen? That's not saying what's going to happen. What could happen? It could be there.
Did I leave the keys in it?
Well, now, so now if you leave the keys, that's a whole other conversation. Give it away.
You better put a cup of coffee.
Right? If you leave the keys, that's a whole other conversation. If you didn't forget them, that's a whole other conversation. The point of the discussion is what? That you don't abandon practical, sensible behavior because you have trust in Allah. It doesn't mean that. That's like somebody saying that there were instances of this throughout the time when the Prophet was in Medina, where you had companions who chose not to work to earn a living. They chose to pray all day. They chose to be in the masjid all day because they wanted to ascertain that spiritual reward. And every instance of this, the Prophet said, cool, you can do that. But the guys that go out and earn a living are better than y'all. Why did he say that? Number one, to clarify this idea of balance. Because it's imbalance. If I'm sitting around, I don't work for a living, but I want money. I don't have a job, but I want things. I don't make any movement, but I want sustenance. Because the sustenance is tied to the idea of going after it, like the bird. Right? And it's go back to the hadith. The hadith didn't say that the bird sits in the nest and Allah provides for it. He said the bird leaves the nest and comes back. So there's movement.
I think in terms of looking at both of these, the one thing that comes out is effort, right? And
yes,
effort. So with the bird, with the tying of the camel, it's like, do your part, do the most.
Do your part.
Do your part.
Yes.
There's a part that you have to do,
yes,
that you're responsible for. If you do your part, then even in doing your part, there's a reliance on Allah. But after you've done your part, that is when the true reliance on Allah, because you've done what you are supposed to do.
Right.
And then you can say, okay, you know what? I've done the most that I can do. So going back to the car, I locked my car, I parked it well. When I come back, it's gone. I did the most I can do. This is just something else that I have to deal with because this is from Allah, right?
Right.
So yeah, so I think for me, both of them, they just speak to making the effort that you are supposed to make within reason, within everything that you're supposed to do. And then after that,
yes,
what more can you do?
Yeah. That's an excellent add-on, because what it speaks to is that even when stuff isn't going well, even when you don't have quite enough, even when you stress, when you think about it, as long as I'm doing my part, Allah is going to take care of me. So I advise all of us, because we all forget this. So we all overstress. We live in a society and we live in a time where there's high demand on people to perform so they can have stuff. That's the nature of a materialistic, capitalistic world, right? So the imbalance is towards wanting more. So to tip the scale back towards more of a balance, because there's nothing wrong with wanting things. There's even nothing wrong with wanting more. The problem is what? When our desire to have more turns into greed. Because when it turns into greed, then the bet's off. Then I want mine and yours and yours and his, and we want it all, right? So we have to take care. So it would be advantageous for us to write on a slip of paper what Christ just said, do your part. And in every part of your life, remind yourself that there's a part that Allah does, and there's a part that you have to do. Because what Allah does is connected to what you have to do. Otherwise, if you don't do your part, you break that connection. You interfere with it. You interrupt it. Yes, Father.
Sorry if I get a little emotional with this.
Just so everyone knows, this is Fatima. She's the emotional sister in our class. It's okay, Fatima. We already know.
The tying your camel has been on my mind all day. And what if the person you trust in Allah, and it's kind of bringing me back to what you said. If you trust in Allah, then maybe if you trust in Allah more, it's probably kind of the answer where I need to be. But you know that Allah tests you with different things. Calamity and test you with your children and your family and everything as a test. And so your precaution can be you can be over precautious. Like instead of tying your camel with a rope, you use like a steel cable and everything like that, or whatever. So it's like you're trying to do that because you know, not because you don't trust that Allah has you, but because you know that Allah tests you.
And you're afraid of the test. Right. Thank you for that honesty. Thank you for that honesty, because all of us are afraid of the test. In fact, if somebody says, I'm not afraid of the test, I want Allah to test me, okay, first of all, you shouldn't say that. right? But second of all, because these things have an interesting way of manifesting, showing up in your life, right? So we have to take care. But we have to be honest. We're all afraid of the test. So I'm going to share something, but go ahead, Aisha. Are you done? Okay.
I think that the part where you have to learn to let your heart rest is the hardest part. Like you have to figure out how to stop your heart from racing, and literally your physical heart from racing. And that's the hardest part, like because and you can't always do it, but that's where you get to the place of circumstantial that you know, like really certainty all of the deep down in the soul. Circumstantial, but because we're humans, because of the physical body, we can feel like a heart racing, and that's the place where we're not safe. And learn to just make your heart stop. Make it stop racing. It's really a difficult task, but it's the signal of the fear, and the stopping it, trying to get it to stop, getting it to stop, is the signal of the rest and certainty of a lot. That a lot really does happen. It's not a joke. A lot has you. Nothing is going wrong. Nothing is wrong. What happens? Nothing is wrong.
This is the reason that this conversation is going on is because it's good. And good stuff is emerging, right? So calming the heart. And there's ways that we calm the heart. And we'll talk about those regularly because it jobs us back to some basic fundamental things. These things are related to how we relate to Allah. So part of it is the reoccurrence of stuff. Usually the test that is most frightening is the first one. Usually when you are progressing spiritually, and oftentimes you don't know it. You don't know that you're progressing spiritually, but Allah knows it. And like the elders would say, Allah has a strange sense of humor. And you get that curveball. The curveball that'll make you say, what is this? You got your little checklist. I did this, I did that, did my dhikr, I made my salats, and I fasted. And then you get the curveball, right? So what I want to share is the big test, the scary test is sometimes you have a conversation with your kids, like I had recently with my oldest daughter. She was saying some stuff, and I'm like, what? Now this is that she graduated college. She's on her own. She's across the country. She's doing her thing. So we had our regular, because me and my daughter are close, we had a regular father-daughter talk. She's just saying some stuff, and I'm like, that feeling, like, because I didn't have the steel cable, but the tying was pretty tight. But I realized, oh, wait a minute, I don't own her, I don't possess her. She belongs to Allah, she don't belong to me.
That's right.
And a part of what I had to do, which was raise her, I did. And within that, I did the best that I could. And my mother, God bless her, did the best that she could. And she's an adult, an intelligent, rational, thinking, Muslim woman. And you got to roll with that. You can't control somebody's heart. You might even be able to control their movement momentarily, but you can't control their heart. And as long as Allah is blessing you to speak to her heart, Allah got it. That's how the test, even though it's frightening, it becomes less frightening.
Mhm.
Even though it's hurtful, it becomes less hurtful. But the tough part is the conversation that you have to have. Like, what are you trying to hold on to?
And why?
And why are you trying to hold on to it? Right? And that's the point of, so the heart's going to race, there's going to be uncertainty, there's going to be nervousness, there's going to be worry, then there are going to be these, well, wait a minute. Like Sister Stephanie said, going back to what she said, I don't control this. Allah controls this. In my case, I had to look in the mirror and say, well, Allah brought you through because Allah knows you, dude. People might not know you, but Allah knows you. Allah brought you through. Why are you? Okay, so that's those, but it requires introspection, self-reflection, slowing down enough so that we can calm the heart. Because nothing will calm the heart except relaxation. Okay? Does somebody have a hand up? Yes, I'm sorry.
I feel like the conversation is kind of going full circle.
Yes.
And getting back to the ayahs that we read. And I looked at the question this morning about looking at the family of Yusuf, alayhi salam, and recognizing that it was the household of the prophet. And, you know, when you see the behavior of the brothers of Yusuf,
Yes.
and you think that these are the sons of a prophet, you guys, what the heck is going on? Why do they have such envy, and what is their father communicating to them that makes them feel insecure? Because there is a lot of insecurity there, and I'm like, okay, well, should he have shown that favoritism? Should they ever have recognized that? And then they go totally ballistic to the thought of murder of their own brother. And so one among them says, maybe not kill him, let's just dump him, you know, and perhaps a traveler will come and get him. So, I mean, this is for us very bizarre. I don't think any of us here today would think, I'm going to murder my brother because dad loves him best, you know. So, but this is a story that Allah gives us, and he shows us some of the extremes, I guess, of human behavior, but Allah put it here for a reason. This is what some of my servants have done. And he plays the story out from beginning to end, where in the end, they're all reconciled. But Allah takes us through the story with them as we observe them thrown off and coming back over a period of many, many years. So I guess my point is that Allah is very merciful. And to quiet some of those fears that we have about taking tests and being exposed to tests, you know, Allah is very merciful. He's very merciful. And we make mistakes. Look at the brothers. Even when he called Musa, he said, you know, I took you through some stages and you did some things, you know, in your day before I called you. But now I'm ready for you and you're ready for me. So the things that you did wrong, I brought you through and you're still okay. I can still work with you. You can still be my servant. So I'm thinking that, you know, if we start off thinking that Allah is merciful and don't dread, even though we have to keep the proper fear of doing wrong, but we shouldn't dread
that he's going to show that mercy to us and extend himself to us in a merciful way. So, I think, with every surah, Bismillahirrahmanirrahim, that's where Allah starts us off, when he's introducing us to his program. So I think that we need to just keep that uppermost, in mind as we go through the test, because even though it's a test, Allah's not trying to trip you up. You know what I mean?
Right.
But he's trying to help you develop and help us evolve, into better servants.
Yes.
If I can just, when Sister Hamdia said that it goes back full circle, it really goes back to the reliance. Okay, we are fearful of the test. That might be natural. I don't want to be tested with this. And many of us have had these thoughts. I don't want a child who is. We have these thoughts that we don't want. But just exactly how Sister Hamdia ended it. That Allah will get you through that same test. He didn't stop being Allah in the beginning, and he's not going to stop being Allah, even if he sends you that test. And as you mentioned the story of Prophet of Prophet Yusuf and his father Yaqub. Even Yaqub himself was afraid of him going out with the brothers, right? He didn't want this test, because he's like, I'm fearful of him going with you guys. Lest this wolf eats him, right? Lest something devours him. So he himself was fearful of the test, but then it comes back down to that whole reliance on Allah, right? That, what? Okay, I know at the end of the day, Allah has him. I don't want this, but at the end of the day, Allah has this. I don't have this under any control. So I think it really comes back full circle to even that thing you fear the most. The reliance on Allah still has to meet you there, waiting for you, right? It's going to be here now, and that reliance will be there in the future if you really want to get through that test that you're really afraid of the most, whatever it might be. So, yeah, that's not anything else to add.
And to go with that story, because he's saying, he said, he also had faith a lot of the time. He could have stopped it. This was like I interpret the story, because he asked him, can he go? He could say no in the story. But his faith in Allah will let this carry out because he knows at the end of the day, I got this.
This is excellent stuff, right? And so part of what I want us to think about, because we're going to make some time to unpack that story. We won't do it today. We'll probably do it next Sunday, because that's a powerful story. But one of the observations, of course, when I first read the story, is sibling rivalry is real. That's what it is. Sibling rivalry is real. It's a real thing, right? And it can be so intense that even if you don't physically kill someone, you can kill their spirit, their personality, whatever is inside of you that needs to be better than your sibling. Now, the realness of sibling rivalry, I got a real life education. I have 4 sons, right? So after years of reflecting on why do these dudes have to throw each other in the walls, flip each other. Every summer I have to have a project where I'm repairing stuff because they're breaking it. They're getting bigger and stronger. And at the root of it, and it helped me to be able to talk to them about their brotherhood and what it means, right? When you look at what is at the heart, why did the brothers in the story of Yusuf, why were they so upset about Yusuf? We may assume they were jealous of Yusuf. Why were they jealous? We may assume it's because of something that Yaqub did. And to an extent it was. Now, in sibling rivalry, sometimes the root of it is that parents show favorites. So the parent favors one child over the other. I don't know what that feels like because I'm the oldest child. And I always got dumped with the responsibility of the other one. So I don't know what that feels like, right? I think my younger siblings think I do, but they don't know. They don't know, right? But why was Yusuf showing favoritism? Because in a way he was.
The youngest. He was like the second to the youngest, right?
Right, but there was more than that.
Because Allah favored him in his dream.
Say that again.
Because Allah favored him, and he saw that in his dream.
That's right.
Okay.
That's what I was gonna say.
Why did Allah favor Yusuf? Because even though it was a household of prophets, the other brothers weren't going to be prophets. Yusuf was. That's why Allah showed Yaqub in a dream. That boy right there is special. And all of the events of his life prove that. It wasn't just that he was incredibly handsome, charismatic, and all of that other stuff that's in the story. It was that he was chosen to be the actual person who in the lineage of prophethood would be the next prophet, and not the other brothers. So now while the other brothers might have been good dudes and all that, they're not, well, Dad said he had a dream, but all I know is every time we turn around, Dad is telling us to be careful with Yusuf. Yusuf, what's so great about Yusuf? Part of it was that there was a way that Yaqub had to be with Yusuf. Because Yusuf was destined, he couldn't allow him to do certain things. This put something in the son, this put something in the other son's heart because it's a natural thing. Yaqub couldn't have prevented it if he wanted to. This is a natural human reaction. When they saw that favoritism, they saw that the dad was doting on, he was extremely protective of him physically and spiritually. More so than the other guys. More so than the other sons. And their response to that was 100% human and natural. Right? And so that's one of the morals of the stories is even in that case, because it was a house of prophethood, yes. But even in the house of prophethood, it's inhabited by what? Human beings. And those human beings had a human response to this metaphysical miracle that their younger brother was going to be like their dad, a prophet, and they weren't. So the magnanimity of Yusuf at the end is prophethood. That Allah, and he saw that when he was older, and he forgave his brothers for their frailty, their human frailty. Yeah, I should go ahead.
There's also this place where Yaqub couldn't do it differently. He could not have failed to let Yusuf go because he had to come to terms with the will of Allah. And so even though he was afraid, even though the story tells of him crying until his eyes turn white, there's nothing that he can do but accept the will of Allah, in spite of the weight that it placed on his heart. So he had to stop his heart from shaking. He had to step past the fear and move forward with what was in front of him, what he knew he had to do, what was in fact the will of Allah. That's the calming of the fear. He couldn't stop that.
Yes. What was that?
He had to tie his camel, let him go.
He had to tie his camel and let him go. Yep. Okay, so this has been an incredibly rewarding discussion. But I want us to move on. Do we have anything on? Any questions?
No. They were just following along there.
So, we're going to reread. So, Fatima, if you could read for us point number 24. Not to brag or boast or brag over any quality that you possess.
Not to boast or brag over any quality that you possess. The believer is not a braggart. Whenever he receives the out of virtue and character to his daddy, they view the favor as a gift and honor it as such. No misfortune can happen either in the earth or in yourselves that was not set down in writing in blood and being. That is easy for Allah. So you do not grieve for what you miss or gloat over what you gain. Allah does not love the conceited, the boastful, those who are miserably and tell other people to be miserable. And if anyone turns away, remember that Allah is self-sufficient, worthy of praise.
Okay. So yeah, this is pretty self-explanatory. That the believer is not a braggart, not a conceited person, stuck up, full of themselves, always got to shine on people. You know, that is not a praiseworthy behavior where if we show up in a group, then we always got to shine on folk and make them feel less of themselves because of how good I feel about myself, right? We should want that feeling of goodness about yourself to be contagious. And this happens when we are brotherly and sisterly, as opposed to consumed with the worldliness of our reality. When we are brotherly and sisterly, then we want that feeling. I feel good about myself, and I want you to feel good about yourself. I don't want to take away from you. I don't have to put you down. I don't have to belittle you. Now, there's a caveat here, right? And I want to say a word to the brothers about competition, because oftentimes, you know, I don't want to say this. Men should be competitious. Men should compete,
Be competitive.
competitive over competition. Men should be competitive. It's a manly thing, so to speak, right? Coming from a person who is a recovering hyper competitive person, I'm in recovery, right? You learn that you have to measure it. So the metaphor that I use often, and even with sisters too, I use sports metaphors, and I know that sisters play sports too, right? So competition and sportsmanship is a good thing, right? Because a part of it is the sportsmanship, to encourage each other, to encourage your teammate. And when it turns ugly is when it turns into being braggadocious or showboating, excessive showboating, right? Because that just has these are bad taste, right? But I don't want us to get confused about our nature. Like, it's our nature as human beings to want to compete. That's a good thing, right? This is how, after all, we go after our interests and the things that we perceive are in our best interest, is that we actively engage in doing it. But there's a line. And so the hadith and the ayah they call us to not going overboard. You know, not going to the point that it becomes injurious to the other person, right? That we insult them, we injure them, or like I said, we put them down, right? So I wanted to say that. And I know that, you know, good-spirited bantering, okay, is okay amongst brothers and sisters. You know, back in the day, way back. Way back. When I was young. Way back. Right? So you play the dozens. Some of y'all don't even know what the dozens is. You know what the dozens is? Yeah. You know what the dozens is? You know what the dozens is?
Oh, I know what insult game, but I don't know what it's.
See, it just changed. It's insult game now?
That's what she said.
It's like
It's like an insult. Busting on people, right? So, good-spirited, it really depends on the context, right? Because, you know, one thing that we don't want to do in our conversations about righteousness is to rob life of some of the normality of it. And so, you know, when brothers get together, we might banter and say stuff. And as long as it's good spirited, you never find that the prophet forbade people from, he joked with people. And the only time he didn't joke is when it was an insult.
Right.
The only time he didn't share, and then he was the prophet. So it's not even good to use him as an example because he held himself to the highest standard. But he never forbade the companions from bantering and ribbing each other unless it was insulting, unless it was hurtful. And the best example of this is nicknames. So he never forbade nicknames unless they were injurious, unless they caused the person to be self-conscious, right? So somebody has a deformity, right? It might be acceptable to call somebody by a name in Jahiliyyah terms, but we shouldn't call people by names that call attention to a deficit, to anything that would make them self-conscious of what their reality already is, right? So back in those days, a man showed up to the masjid and he introduced himself to the companions. He said he wanted to be a Muslim, and the Prophet asked him what his name was. He said his name was Stone. He said, my name is Hajar, rock. Rock. And the companions could see that the Prophet's face changed. Rock. Man. Because it was merited amongst the Arabs at that time that Rock was the guy that they wanted Rock with them. Because he was hard and he was immovable and he had no mercy, no compassion. Right? And this is good if the tribe is raiding another tribe, but it's not good when people are dealing with each other. Right? So the Prophet said, change your name and don't call him that. And he changed his name to something else. Because names have spiritual merit in Islam, which is why we take care in naming. Or we should, because the name has spiritual merit, or it can, right? So that's just a caveat because, again, we have to honor our nature as people. But as we move to try to do better, as Sister Hamdia said, to evolve and to do better, right, we have to understand that we're not being called to not be human. Right? And so a part of, engaging with people from a spiritual lens is that even if there were a situation where we were ribbing each other, joking around, I need to be sensitive enough to realize, well, I think I might have hurt that person's feelings. Let me go make sure.
Right. Fix it.
Right? Let me just double check. I said some things, might have gotten out of hand. Let me make sure, right? Because that's always a possibility in our engagements with each other. That's always a possibility. Okay. I want to not say a couple more things. We're running out of time. So we just follow along. So point number 25.
Go ahead. I have a question about 24.
You don't have 25?
No, commentary.
24 is the last one. Oh, okay. I know why you don't have 25. Yes.
Question about 24.
Yes.
Here it says, when Allah has endowed someone with a virtuous character or granted a status of honor, that
you guard it as a gift. Could you speak to that when you say granted somebody, not something bad, maybe something good?
It is something good. It is something good. The status is something good. The status is,
we should guard that too, he's saying, with, I let it guard it.
Mhm.
I got a gift from Allah.
Right. And so it's a gift from Allah and not a one-up thing something that you one-up people with. Whether it's a title, whether it's money, wealth, talent, you buy the car of your dreams, and then all of a sudden now, because human nature is like that, it's finicky, it's funny like that. Something like a car may change a person in their mind, they perceive that it changes their inner reality. Right. So to be cautious and careful, right? So we want to be careful of feelings of jealousy in ourselves, as well as inciting feelings of jealousies in other people. Because that's how fragile we are. It doesn't take a lot for Shaitan to jump on something and say, that brother always, now that I think about it, he never really liked me. That sister never really liked me. That kind of conversation is easy to start. And Shaitan will jump right in. That's it. Yeah, you're right. That dark voice. Yeah, you're right. That brother never really liked you. Right? So those are the things that we take care with. So what I'm going to do, because I forgot you guys don't have point number 25. I'm going to read them 25 through 30, 25 through 29. I want you to write them down. So 25 is not to have malice or hatred towards anybody. Not to have malice or hatred towards anybody. Not to have malice or hatred towards anybody. Point number 26, not to be envious of anyone. Not to be envious of anyone. Not to be envious of anyone. 27, not to become angry. Not to become angry. Not to become angry. 28, not to wish harm for anyone. Not to wish harm for anyone. Not to wish harm for anyone. And 29, not to have love for the world. Not to have love for the world. Not to have love for the world. And then, so the goal at-home assignment will be to identify one verse or one hadith that speaks to not having malice or hatred towards anybody. Identify one verse from the Quran or one hadith. If it's something that you already know, come prepared next week to share it. Something that you heard, come prepared to share it. Something that you read in the Quran, something that you read in the hadith. And if you don't know, invest a little energy and try to identify one verse or one hadith. It's a little homework. It's like really. Okay.
26 was not to be envious of anyone?
Yes, 26 is not to be envious of anyone. And of course, next week, inshallah, we'll have the additional pages for the handout. we'll have conflict, yes. What happened?
The first part of this, I think misfortune can happen either in Earth or in yourselves. Takes me back to kind of like, it's really funny how long people think what you need. Like, to end on that ties back into what it means to depend on the law and what it means to trust in the law and tie your family and to realize that Allah is in control of all things and knowing that I think part of it is me thinking that if I do this thing, I can prevent this other thing from happening.
Mm-hmm.
And realizing and really truly thinking, not realizing that that is not the case. So like no matter what it is that I do, and a good portion of my fears and concerns are about my kids,
Mm-hmm.
parenting and everything like that. And I think that I realize that I say that I believe that, but do I really believe it if I think that if I don't do this thing a certain way, that something is or isn't going to happen to them?
Mm-hmm.
And that just the beginning part of what we last just read kind of just sat with me like, what's supposed to happen to them is going to happen to them. What's not supposed to happen to them is not going to happen to them. Mm-hmm. And it's just you don't want those really serious bad things to happen to them.
Right.
Just acknowledge that sometimes really bad things happen to people and they still come through.
Right.
You know, and sometimes they don't, but whatever it is, this is what Allah has written for them.
Right.
And I think that's what I need to reconcile myself with.
Right. Right. Shukran for sharing that. Yes.
I'd like to make a statement that, being old and having children,
Yes, ma'am.
sometimes I've got to say, like, you children, you become so involved. You don't realize at the time because you're saying you believe you trust in the law. But I find the law would test you because sometimes you are so consumed with them, you don't know it. You really don't really know it, But they are the most important thing in your life. You don't think that. You don't see that. But I find for me is that Allah would test you with them. He would test you with them sometimes to make you better, to make you learn how to depend and trust in Him. Because at the end of the day, you might have done, because I've done it. My first son, I cried. I did everything in my power. I couldn't understand it. I didn't sleep. I just could. It was like, why me? I prayed. I did everything. Why this to me? So I had to realize, why not me?
Okay.
But through it all, it made me realize that I had put them before Allah, not realizing it. And He tested me. He tested me with my children. And I know, you know that. But you come to realize that you've done everything in your power. So you don't grieve anymore. And you just so thankful. But He didn't have to let me see that. He could let me just blind along. He didn't let me see that. So now it comes to the point is do whatever you need to do to make me get close to you. And alhamdulillah, it has made it easy. It has made life has become easy. I understand it. Sometimes it's scary. You love them, and then you see them, then you realize that it wasn't all for. About 2 weeks ago, I'm gonna let you go. My son called me like 5 o'clock. My oldest son, 6:30 in the morning, 5 o'clock in the morning. I'm saying, you call me, just say how you doing. I'm saying, what you up this morning? What you up so early for? He said, just for to make it salat. And I said, that's all I needed. That was just all I needed. Because I'm saying, make it salat. I'm not there, and you calling me this time. So alhamdulillah, so through it all, that you're so thankful. So, the test, you look back and you just laugh, I can't believe this. But sometimes the tests are for us. It's for us to bring us closer to Allah. It's difficult.
Yeah. Well, no one said it would be easy, right? Thank you, Sister Jalisa, for that. Thank you for sharing. So before I depart, I'm sorry.
You have another copy of the 21 to 24.
So I have, we had a request, Regina asked for a prayer, a gratitude prayer. Okay. And I'm encouraged by this class because I feel that people are honestly sharing their hearts. And so the emotion is a part of it. And I just want to let everybody know that the emotion is okay. I mean, I know y'all brothers, none of y'all was crying because we don't cry, right?
No, I do.
Right?
I ain't ashamed of it.
I ain't gonna cry, I cry.
Yeah.
So y'all see me crying, you know, I'm still a man. I might cry, but this, would you like?
Don't get it twisted.
Don't get it twisted, right? But it's a beautiful thing, right? And I want for people to feel that there's no judgment here as it relates to how you're supposed to be, because we're learning together. So there was a request for a prayer. I'm going to read the prayer, and then Fatima, if you could make copies for everybody. But this is a prayer that I came across years ago. It's called the Thanksgiving prayer. Thanksgiving, the holiday. See, I'm a linguist, so I respect the power of words. You say the word Thanksgiving, everybody knows Thanksgiving. It's not Thanksgiving prayer, but it's a prayer of giving thanks in the morning. So it's the way you do it is you start out with praising Allah. So you say Alhamdulillah, say it 10 times, and then you give Salah upon the Prophet. You say that 7 to 10 times. And then you say what is called the prayer of Ibrahim alayhi salam. The prayer says, "O Allah, this is a new creation. Open it for me with obedience to you, and close it for me with your forgiveness and your good pleasure. Bestow upon me therein a good deed which you accept from me, and sanctify it and double it for me. Forgive me an evil deed which I commit therein. Verily you are all forgiving, compassionate, affectionate, and generous." And then it is said in the religious tradition that the person who supplicates with this prayer in the morning has already offered the Thanksgiving prayer of the day. Now, the source for this is Imam Ghazali has a book called Supplications. Something like Supplications, I think it's called Supplications. And this dua is in that book. It's from that book. But this is an excellent prayer for you to say in the morning, every morning, as a prayer of gratitude. So, Fatima, if you could make copies, everybody, and inshallah, I'll see you guys next week.
Hold up, let me get your last.
Oh, thank you so much.
Okay.
Put it, I look right at it. Oh, I got it. Let me see.
Oh, okay.
That prayer, how did you get that prayer? I think about a couple of years ago.
Yeah.
And he shared it with me, and I was reading it today. And it's good seeing. Give me my salam.
I will. How you doing? You all right?
I'm gonna do this in the glass. I don't want to do it too tight today. One of those books that kept.
Oh, you know what?
Okay. It's tighter. That one, I didn't do that part because I just mentioned this.
Okay. So it's
Muhammad Rashid.
This one do text Abdul about the name Rashid, and that's when he texted me. The name Rashid isn't mentioned in the hotel. Most scholars say the wrong names can then be determined by what truth. It's a big hearing about like Rashid, like really and actually. So you want people to do what they do is different because of that, and you know, that. I mean, if you don't refer to laws on Rashid, you don't have that name.
Only if he said it's not to watch it. So there are other means of translation. Names that you so we would have because I think
I have the exact.
I want to say Rashid was mentioned.
Oh, right.
Well, somebody said maybe that's true.
Oh, yeah.
Well, you know, you have to come you know, that's not why. You want to find it out anyway. I'm glad it did do that, but you know. So I asked him about this. Can you see what that is? White Rashid one of the same story is Halima Rashid. Like a lot of you and then Rashid not even using the term whatsoever and refer to a lot of like other things like knowledge. Sometimes people like you said, when I used to make things that I just do it lawful when it's not. Oh, this one. That look better? Yeah. And I was, the work I, use the thing like example. I want to do it with my hands, it might break. Come on. That's it. I do it for you. So you don't even do it? Oh, yeah, because you're a pro at that. That's what I used to do. I'm missing 2 minutes. It's your first time coming.
This is something that he's doing.
This is the first time back. Oh. Oh, it's only one. Oh, you don't want to have. Thank you, sir. Read the last time. People get back to me by the middle of the week. Class is here and you sound all night. Or like night. Yeah. I think I'm gonna work with that. They didn't actually we was down there. Are y'all down already? We were down for the 6th class. Okay. Yeah, but brother. So just let me know. Okay, somebody just let me know what's going on. But I was saying you can't remember nothing. Forgive me, guys. Because it's freezing. Take your time. See, you came up and hooked. Why do you came up and hooked? Yeah. Oh, whatever. Come on, I hate it, man. You don't like to just I just like value.
And did you already fill out a form or still? No, did you fill out a form? What be your good second?
You got a phone,
I need to fill out a registration.
Okay.
This is for the class, just weird, you know, that thing. You can go ahead.
You stay or you leave?
I'm leaving.
Well, that was, okay. Okay, well.
Okay.
Yes.
Yep. You just send it
Somebody
back.
got it, right? Okay.
Say that you have. Yeah, I forgot that.
I think that's good. You can get it for $20 on.
Okay, okay.
Big Beach Brothers, this, yeah.
No.
And they usher, they sit There's the word, Barry Shaver.
Yeah.
What they these clowns you see in school? And then they want to say me, oh, well, I haven't been in the Middle East. You know what they're talking about.
I'm gonna try to catch them now.
No, tricky for kids.
Question. Is it an hour and a half?
Did you say somebody's school?
Yeah, it's going far back in November.
We was talking about that in the class.
Really?
Like, time you got me like, you didn't like it?
Yeah, it was locked and everything. I think what happened, like, they got like, various tow companies, they got these jack leg tow companies, what they'll do, they'll snatch your car, hold it, and it's like $125 to $175 just for towing. And then it's like $25 a day for storing. What they'll do, they'll snatch your car, they about a month or so contact you, we got your car, it's $500 to get it back. So what I did was, I was taking my grandson back to school. I talked about that in the ride.
You sure?
Yeah. Near towing him. So we were coming back from now Boarding Spring Garden. So where's my car? I know I parked it right there. I made a mistake. We go 17th Street. Oh, 17th Street. I think I come back. So Lou Blum, which is the Rebel towing company, like right near their area, but I wasn't in their parking area. I called them. I got my car. I ain't got the lunch. I called cops. My car. I can't have report. I got a report. Called my insurance company. They're just winding up the insurance now. It should be wound up this week. But I think they told my car they were gonna hold it. And I called and reported stolen. So once I reported stolen, I don't know if they found out about it, but the car never showed up. So like I told you, my car is wrong. I wanted to lock it. It wasn't. So they somebody told me.
Is it trouble?
Huh?
Is it legal? Is this to keep making up?
That's what they do. It's a hustle. I mean, if you don't know no better, I mean, it's nothing you can do. The car gets towed, so the car got towed. Who are you going to report to? You know what I'm saying? We told your car. You going to call police? They told my car. You got to prove to police that your car was in the tow zone for them to have towed your cars. You got this whole like legal struggle by the time you go through the courts and all that. Whatever they charge you $5 to get your car back. You're gonna pay that to go to the courts just to get it back. So you're gonna pay it anyway, one way or the other. So once I report it stolen, I don't know. Once I report it stolen, it might like went out on the wires. We just stole the car. We got the car was stolen now. They can't get it back. What they can do now is chop it up. So I don't know what happened to my car. I think they told it. That's what they do. Got it.
It's personal. Think somebody might use it.
I really don't care for personal. It was 2012. It was 2012. We had 48,000 miles on it. This year, I was kind of glad that they took it. But that's all the trouble I went through with the insurance and all that. I'm like, man, I wish they would have took my insurance. But now it's almost over there. It's almost kind of like leveled out. It's not really as bad.
Who didn't get enough?
I'm waiting for the straight insurance now.
Yeah, we just talked about the previous class.
What did you say?
I thought the dude was gonna be in Arabic.
I mean, it's worked out. It's kind of worked out. It's just time from 28 to 28. It's kind of worked out. It kind of worked out. Yeah. And then you have like when you get a car, you have like a regular insurance. I bought it like for a car dealership. So if you buy a car at $25,000, once you drive up a lot, you increase it in value. So if you buy $25,000, you drive up back on. They only give you pay $25. They only give you 19. So they got what's called gap coverage. You gotta have regular insurance coverage. You gotta have gap coverage. And gap coverage covers that difference that they're not gonna give you. So I had that when I reported it to my insurance company. I thought they were gonna report it to gap insurance, but they didn't. About 2-3 weeks went by. People from my insurance company called me, so I'm talking to them. But I asked them about, y'all, what about the gap? That wasn't on us. That was on you. You were supposed to report that. I was supposed to report it. So I do that. I called them the same day I called them. It was like a 2-3 week period difference. So my insurance company already paid their costs. Now, gap coverage, they got the bid.
But they had it wound up this week. I might be back in Saturday or next week or something.
One thing is enough.
Yeah, it's better crash before I have it stolen. But when it's stolen, they wait 30 days to see if it's gonna turn up. So you gotta wait. Well, you gotta wait at 30 days anyway to see if it's gonna turn up.
But you got anything for it?
Nah, a couple of, see, no, we're not important. Really, just a car was important.
No documents.
Did you teach it today, Brother Kane?
Not today, sir. Today. See, that's not bad.
This is my first, this is the third week of my first class. Okay.
Today will be for. We started the first time. It was remember, it was revived. No.
Yeah, we just need back on.
When you got pages.
Yeah.
I got this. I got this. Yeah, in fact, I think I did the one you had last year.
No, I'm thinking about that. I didn't have any other for it right now.
No, yeah, you have a mess, not that. She's leaving this up. So this comes down. This goes down. Open the wall. This goes down. Can you write on this? Yes. Okay. Yeah. So this is one that very, very also I am some way of that's how you use the white and then keep it on All right. How's everyone today? Yes, so I decided to abandon the whole iPad thing and all that good stuff because it was frustrating for me and you as well. I'm sure it was frustrating for you. You just didn't say it. You know. There wasn't much surface to work with, so this is hopefully, inshallah. Now that I look at it, well, it'll work. We'll make it work.
Can I,
Yes.
you know, my wife and I, this is the third class, right?
Mhm.
The new session. Did you give out another book?
No. Mm-mm. What you have from last semester is the same handout that we're working from. And I don't know, is anyone, is this anyone's first class?
That's mine.
Okay, so you should already have this from last semester. Or did you not bring it with you? Okay, it's the same thing. Okay. Anyone else?
This third class, my first time, I paid annual, like.
Anyone?
I'm just wondering if I got a.
No, you don't have to pay for it.
This is a,
Yes, yes.
Okay, so. I wanted to today, so we're going to quickly review last week's lesson, inshallah. And last week, topic was the interrogative articles. And I trust we did the homework, inshallah. How did we make out with that?
That was lesson 4, right?
That was lesson, the chapter was chapter, I believe it was 7.
Lesson 4, but maybe that's.
Was that 7? Then it's 8.
Wait.
All right, 1 second.
I did 4 now. Maybe I should go back and read some of that.
Yeah, that's chapter 8. Yes, the interrogative articles for Asma'u al-Istifham. And we covered that. And your homework was for you to translate the sentences that you had on page 26 into English. How did we make out with that? Considering that we did most of that already in class. Was that hard?
No. I just said it, yes.
I couldn't help it.
Yeah, that's what I was saying. I don't have anything that goes up to page 26.
You don't?
No, I have up to page 23 from the last session. Okay. Population, you get one.
Okay, so I'm also going to pass out, I promised you last week, so there's some rules that we went over last semester that I need you to know, and a couple of terminologies. So if someone could hand these out as well. And we're going to take a minute to go over that before we begin today's lesson. So I trust that page 26 did not pose much of a problem. The homework, again. Okay, so let's start with another place. I need this one again. That's English, yeah. Yeah, that is what I think. For now, yes. We are going to add to that.
There's only one person that needs a copy.
Copy of what? What?
It's one person who doesn't have.
I have another copy.
Okay. Oh.
So we have, so if I were to say, man, Fanta. How would you answer man anta?
How would you answer man anta?
أنا محمد.
Ana Muhammad. Uh-huh. Or someone else?
أنا
And
قاسم. أنا قاسم.
Is that pronounced Qasim or Qasim?
Qasim.
Is that pronounced Qasim or Qasim? Or
Qasim.
Qasim.
No. Can you say you can't say this? Oh, wow. MashaAllah.
So we can turn off the light on this side.
Not only.
Yeah, that will make it worse. Let's give it a try. If it doesn't work, we'll go back to.
No.
How's that?
Try that.
Little, no, yeah, no. So when I was using the projector, that was good.
Projector was fine for me.
Oh, well,
So who
they can't, they're way over there and they can't see. So we have to see, I'm sorry, you, wow. Yeah.
Whose idea was that?
It was my idea. I'll own that. Yeah, it's the glare, the distance, and the work. So yes.
If we started another row.
Well, if you want to try that, if we could like move a little closer towards the center, inshallah. Let's try that first before I have to set everything up again.
Awesome.
Y'all can come as close as y'all want, it's fine.
Oh, no.
Got no space?
Yeah, I'm good. I just gotta get straighter.
So we have man anta, who are you? And of course, if you recall last week, we established that anta means what? You. Man anta. Who are you? Ana, whatever your name is. We're not going to focus on mada ta'kulu. You translated that to mean?
What are you eating?
I'm sorry.
What are you eating?
What are you eating? Kam taliban fil fasli means what?
How many
How many students are in the classroom? Kayfa haluka? And the answer to that would be بخير or بخير والحمد لله or طيبة or الحمد لله. الحمد لله works as well.
About the bus.
Labas works as well. Okay, متى الامتحان? Not looking for you to answer that. Although we did write that down, I gave you some answers. What were some of the answers that I gave you for متى الامتحان?
Yomu.
Wait a minute. غدا, okay. غدا was one.
Tomorrow.
Yeah, غدا. And we also had what? اليوم. And I told you that the word yawmun means what? A day. Which one?
Oh, yeah.
With the shadana. Okay. Tomorrow. غدا means tomorrow. اليوم is today. غدا is tomorrow. And ams is yesterday. Amsunis. Is what? Yesterday.
What is imtihan?
Imtihan, examination.
غدا is tomorrow.
غدا is tomorrow. أين المسجد?
Where's the masjid?
Where's the masjid? Okay. هل أنت مسلم?
Are you Muslim?
Are you Muslim? The answer to that would be نعم or
Taba'an. What? That means of course. It was of course.
yes. However, I mean, the person could say, conceivably, a person could say لا. أنا whatever. أنا نصراني. The person belongs to the Christian faith. Nasraniyun or Masihiyun, those two words are used. Or ana Yahudiyun, for example. Or if the person was an atheist, then a person would say what they are. So, I don't believe in God. لماذا تقرأ الكتاب? Why do you read the book? That, or why are you reading the book? And that was the last one. So now I would like for us to move on to the handout that I gave you. And I want us to go over this quickly because we did cover this last semester. And the first rule, I'm going to erase this once everyone's done, and so that I can vowel these rules, because these rules, as you have them on your sheet, are not voweled. And these are rules that you absolutely must remember. Absolutely must remember. So moving forward, if I ask you, you know, what vowel belongs where, you should know that. Okay? So the same way we wrote Ana Muhammadun, for example, you know why there's Dhamma Tanween at the end of Muhammadun, and you understand why Ana ends in a sukun. Okay, and that's based on what you have here. Okay, so the first rule reads al-aslu fi al-asma'i al-raf'u. So we're going to write this down here, inshallah, where everyone can see. Al-aslu, you're just voweling. Fi al-asma'i, and sisters, I will be moving shortly, inshallah. Al-raf'u. Al-aslu fi al-asma'i al-raf'u. Al-aslu fi al-asma'i al-raf'u is basically means that, as you have it written here, the normative case ending for all nouns in Arabic is the dhamma. Case endings change, and then again, we're going to get to that in a minute. Sometimes they change and sometimes they do not. However, the first rule is an aslu fil asma'i al-raf'u, and we have two examples here, and the two examples that we have here, they are both vowel. And the first is Muhammadun, in the event that you cannot see what the example is. The first example is Muhammadun. So when I say that the case ending is dhamma, of course, you're looking at last letter, last vowel. So in Arabic, depending on the placement of the noun in the sentence, the ending will change. Okay? The second rule that we have here, which reads al-mubtada'u wal-khabaru marfu'ani, and I go back to, we'll label this number 1. We'll call this example number 1. And here, this is an example of a noun sentence, or al-jumlatul ismiya, in which you have a subject and a predicate. So in Arabic, this is a complete sentence. This is a noun sentence. It begins with a noun. Pronouns in Arabic fall into the category of nouns. So ana would be your subject and Muhammadun would be your predicate, or the mubtada and the khabar. The rule that you have here, which is the second rule, al-mubtada wal khabaru marfu'ani, clearly states that the subject and predicate both must end in the vowel dhamma or dhamma tanween. If you look at ana clearly does not end in a dhamma, nor does it end in a dhamma tanween. That's because ana is a pronoun. And all pronouns fall into the category of nouns that are referred to as mabniyun or restricted. So we're going to, yes.
These are rules for the purposes of me labeling my sheet. They're rules of what?
These are grammar rules.
Okay.
So we had al-mubtada'u wa al-khabaru marfu'ani. المبتدأ والخبر مرفوعان. We're going to add something else here. We have this word here. We're going to underline this. In parentheses, we're going to have the term marfu'un. And the term marfu'un means ending with dhamma or dhamma tanween. As in Muhammadun ends in dhamma tanween. Therefore, Muhammadun is marfu'. We had Qasimun on the board earlier. Qasimun ended in dhamma tanween. Therefore, Qasimun is marfu'. Well, marfu'ani is actually dual. Marfu'un is singular. So you just heard me say dual. What is that? So in Arabic, a noun is either singular, dual, meaning two, or plural. So in Arabic, we don't go from one to plural. In Arabic is one, two, or more than two. Mufrad is singular, muthanna is dual, and jam'un is plural, and that's in our not so distant future. So we have the term marfu'un, which is a reference to dhamma. Then we're also going to have two other terminologies, which I am going to write on the board today because you absolutely have to know them. Because next week, we're going to add a little more color to the equation. So we have marfu'un, then we have majrurun. And majrurun means ending with a kasra or kasra tanween. That's the term majrur. So if you have a word that ends in a kasra, see the kasra, you know that kasra is there for a reason. Why is the kasra there? It's a different story. We're not talking about that today. Although several times in the past, I've given you examples of when a word will end in a kasra. And usually I refer you to Bismillah. When you say Bismillah, you know why the word Allah ends in a kasra. You know why the word Bismi ends in a kasra. If you remember. Remember the ba. The ba being a preposition meaning meaning with or meaning in. So Bismi. So that kasra is there because of the ba. So that word, we refer to that word as being majrurun. And the ba is actually a preposition, and that is harfu jarrin, and of course that's the topic of next week's class. So I don't want to spend too much time on that. So we have majrurun, and then lastly we have mansubun. And we will be using these terminologies, therefore you are responsible for them. So mansubun means ending with fatha or fatha tanween. So these three terminologies, marfu'un, majrurun, mansubun. Marfu'un is a reference to dhamma or dhamma tanween. Majrurun is a reference to kasra or kasra tanween. And mansubun is a reference to fatha or fatha tanween. مرفوع مجرور منصوب. So when we look at al-mubtada wal-khabar marfu'ani, was there a question? I saw a hand. Now, so when we look at the second rule, al-mubtada wal-khabar marfu'ani, that's up there. The example that we have for that is the sentence kitabun wahidun, one book, or if we were to say hadha kitabun wahidun, this is one book. That's an awkward but acceptable way of saying that. Hadha kitabun wahidun. Yeah, let's erase this here. We don't want it. So we had kitabun wahidun. Or hadha kitabun wahidun. I prefer keeping it simple, hadha kitabun wahidun, because come over here and it gets a little hairy. So kitabun wahidun, in this case, we understand why kitabun ends in a dhamma, and we understand why wahidun ends in a dhamma. And while you may be looking at this example that I have here on the board, you may be thinking, okay, well, I see that, but. So, as I have done before in the past, and I gave you the example of the fatha with the very first word in the fatha, which is, what's the very first word in the fatha? Okay, after the basmala. Alhamdu. Alhamdu is in a dhamma. Why is alhamdu in a dhamma? Because alhamdu is the mubtada. It's the subject of your sentence. Therefore, by rule, it must end in a dhamma. Lillahi, which is, again, when you look at alhamdu lillahi, I'm asking you to visualize right now, and I don't know if you're able to do that, but the word lillahi ends in a kasra. You hear the kasra even if you don't see it. It ends in a kasra because, and I think we had this on board last week, you had the preposition and then you have the word Allah. Lillahi. So in Arabic, whenever you have a preposition, the noun that follows automatically ends in a kasra. That's not something that you're even thinking about. You see a preposition, you should expect that there's a kasra there. And if there isn't a kasra there, then you should question that. Because a kasra should be there. Alhamdulillah. So we have the other two, we have two terminologies here on the paper as well. We have al-mu'arabu. So let us write that. And I think that it should be safe for us to erase this. So this is going now. And we have al-mu'arabu. And al-mabniyu. Al-mu'arabu and al-mabniyu. So al-mu'arabu is a word, be it noun or verb, that is subject to change. In parentheses, we have the term inflection. Grammatical inflection meaning adding or subtracting letters or vowels, specifically in Arabic, and specifically with the past tense, specifically with nouns, the singular noun, you're changing the last vowel. The examples that you have here, if you take a close look at the examples, we have, let's erase Muhammadun here, and the examples that we have here are Bab. We have the word Babylon. So Babylon is marfu'an. Yes?
Yes.
Everybody following? Babun, Dhamma Tanween, is marfu'an. Okay? Babun can also become baban, and baban is mansubun, fatha tanween, and it can also become babin. Babun, baban, or babin. And the word babun means what? Door. You may be asking yourself, what's that? Is there a difference in meaning between babun, baban, and babin? Who knows the answer to that? Don't be shy, just raise your hand. Yes?
They all mean the same thing.
They all mean the same thing. Absolutely. Meaning doesn't change. Ending changed. Context may change, but meaning does not change. So babun, baban, babin all mean a door. An example of al-mabniyu, al-mabniyu, which is the second terminology that we have here, is a word that is restricted. It's restricted from, again, restricted from change, unable to change. It's the opposite of al-mu'arabu. It's a word that is restricted. The examples that we have here are, again, some of our vocabulary words, demonstrative pronouns, hada. We have, what else here? We have men or min, both of which are mabniyun. Men, interrogative article. Min is a preposition, harfu jar, both of which are restricted. When I say restricted, what does that mean? That means that this sukun here will always be there. That will never change. You will never see hada spelled with a fatha, kasra, something else over the alif. You will never ever see the alif disappear when it comes to hada. Men. And I'm using this example because it's important that you understand. It's critical. Those of you who have been in Tajweed class for a while, you understand by now the importance of vowels. And the fact that when we talked about making sure that you're pronouncing the correct vowel, and that changing a vowel can change the meaning of a word. The difference between man and min. Man is an interrogative article meaning who. And min is a preposition meaning the big difference between the two. So you cannot mix man, you cannot mix this up with min. Okay? And both are mabniyun. I said mabniyun, I eliminated the alif and the lam. Al-mabniyu is definite, and mabniyun is what? Indefinite. Mabniyun is indefinite. Alrighty. Any questions before we move on?
So what's that?
Mm-hmm.
The correct vowel is
For which?
mabniyu.
Al-mabniyu or mabniyun mean without the definite article or with?
Without.
Without would be mim, fatha, bat sukun, nun kasra, ya shadda, and dhamma tanween. Mabniyun. All right. So I know this document contains a lot, so inshallah you'll have an opportunity to go over this at home, and inshallah this is something that we're going to visit often. It will be repeated in class often, so you don't need to worry. We're going to continue to go over to use these terminologies, marfu'un, mansubun, majrurun. You'll hear this all the time. You'll hear, I will remind you of this rule, al-mubtada wal khabar marfu'ani, often, probably every class. The only rule that you will not hear always is the first one, which is al-aslu fil asma'i al-raf'u. That one, that one I want you to know. So if I ask you what vowel belongs at the end of whatever word, you should be able to tell me. And it's outside of the structure of a sentence. You should automatically know that a dhamma belongs there.
What's the translation of plain?
You have it. You have the definition right there, right below it.
Nominative case ending of all nouns.
Yeah, the nominative case ending for all nouns is dhamma.
Oh. Okay.
All right. Chapter 9, unless someone has a question. Chapter 9, page 27. Numbers or al-a'da. Let's start that. Let's take a look at that, inshallah. Al-a'da, or the numbers. This is definite. Indefinite would be adadun. Adadun. Adadun is singular, meaning a number. Now,
Man, would it be too much trouble to start a new board? Or people still copying? Is that?
Oh, some of us are still copying.
Oh.
MashaAllah. No.
Okay.
No, we'll slow it down just a little bit, and I'll give everyone an opportunity to continue, inshallah, hopefully, As a matter of fact, I'll go back higher and I'll erase what's highest on the board. Hopefully, inshallah, that'll work. Then again, I don't want to talk while you're trying to copy something down because then you'll miss out on the lesson. We don't want that. Now,
maybe this doesn't matter, but you had the beginning of the word out and land.
Right.
They just look a little different. I just wanted that.
yeah, well, that's what I was attempting to explain.
Oh.
So, no, go ahead.
Straight versus.
Yeah.
Yeah. We're about to get there. But that's, again, inshallah, that's something that we have. That's the definite article, which is chapter 3. And inshallah, that's something that hopefully, inshallah, we remember.
Right now, I was just asking about the difference in the way it's written. One looks like a two.
Yeah, one is singular, the other one is plural.
No, that's not what I'm saying the way that you wrote the aleph and the lambs look different.
The lambs look different.
Right. One is like a little two.
You talking about the olive lamb combination?
Right. This here versus this.
Oh, good.
Oh, that.
That doesn't matter. Maybe it doesn't matter.
No, that doesn't matter.
Okay. All right.
It's the same thing.
Okay.
Alif lam, or lam alif, or whatever you want to call it. This is this.
Just purpose, that's all it is.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
And I will put the hamza there. So if I were to spell this using this type of alif lam, then it would look like this. Which you have here in your handout.
So the first one is singular?
Wait a minute.
Okay.
Which one? No. This here is plural. This here is singular.
Okay.
This here is definite. This here is indefinite.
Okay.
So adadun is a number. Al-a'dadu means the numbers, plural. All right. So we have the cardinal and ordinal numbers. We're going to start with the cardinal numbers, and they are listed first. And we are starting with the number 1. You're going to vowel these numbers. Where are we at with regards to the copying up here so that I can make some space, inshallah.
What is that?
I'm sorry, everyone's done. Oh, wow. That's phenomenal. I'm not getting any objection. No objection. Everyone's good. It's okay.
Surge ahead, Imam.
Okay, so we'll start up here. So we have wahidun. One. One. Ithnani. Ithnani.
These are cardinal numbers?
These are cardinal numbers, yes. Thalathatun. Arba'atun. Khamsatun. Sittatun. سبعة ثمانية تسعة and عشرة. نعم.
Number 8, ثمانية.
Yes. ثمانية.
What's شدة over? Yeah.
No. ثمانية. No shade over there. ثمانية.
ثمانية.
Yes, فتحة over there. Absolutely. So now, once you're done voweling what you already have in your handout, numbers in Arabic are gender specific. So aside from the numbers 1 and 2, anything that comes after that is not what you see on the board. Yeah. So again, we've learned that when we look at a word that ends in the tap marbuta, the feminine closed tap, that generally, that noun is feminine. Now, thalathatun is not. Wahidun is masculine. Ithnani is masculine. Thalathatun is masculine as well. I could say kitabun, wahidun, kitabani, ithnani. One book, 2 books. The word kitabun in Arabic is masculine. You may be asking yourself, how is kitab, a book, masculine? So gender is assigned to everything in Arabic. So it's either masculine or feminine. Hada kitabun. Kitabun is masculine. So because kitabun is masculine, you're using the masculine pronoun, hada, as opposed to hadihi. Now, so when we get to 3, it gets interesting. So we're going to erase al-mu'arabu here.
Should we?
And al-mabniyu. What was that?
Should we be putting M and an F next to the numbers?
Yes, because what I'm going to do is I'm going to write the feminine numbers for you as well. Same numbers, but in the feminine form. Kitabani ithnani and thalathatu kutubin. 3 books. We use thalatha 2 with the ta marbuta with the word kutubin, which is clearly masculine. And I say clearly because the norm is that kitabun is masculine. That's something that you're learning as we go along. It's not something that you knew. But in Arabic, kitabun is masculine. Kursiyun, chair, is masculine. Tawilatun, on the other hand, is feminine. So we have wahidun, ithnani, thalathatun, أربعة خمسة ستة سبعة ثمانية تسعة عشرة. Let's give that a try. واحد اثنان ثلاثة أربعة خمسة ستة سبعة ثمانية تسعة عشرة. Very good. So these are the masculine numbers. So we're going to move down a little further and we're going to write the feminine. Same cardinal numbers. I'm sorry. What was that?
So, are numbers 3 through 10?
Are my numbers 3 through 10? Yes, all of these numbers up here are masculine. So, feminine.
And we're gonna write the same numbers in the feminine
Yes,
form.
feminine form. واحدة.
Even if,
Now,
so if all of those are masculine, what did you say was different about 1 and 2, that they don't change?
they don't have the feminine appearance.
Oh. Oh, they don't have a feminine appearance, not that they don't have a feminine form.
No, they do have feminine, yeah. So you're looking, they don't have the feminine form, they have feminine appearance. اثنتان ثلاث أربع خمس ست. Absolutely. سبع ثمان تسع عشر. So here we have the opposite. Numbers 1 and 2, clearly feminine. You have tap marbuta, feminine closed tap. Then the number 2 here, we have the open feminine tap. It's not tani. Okay, 2. Then ثلاث أربع خمس ست سبع ثمان تسع عشر. All look masculine, but in reality they're feminine.
Well, it's the last one. Is that a before they double 10 week? What is that under?
ثلاث. That's a dot. So the same way we have kitabun wahidun, we could say darajatun. What does darajatun mean? Bicycle. Darajatun wahidatun. One bike. Darajatani. Whoops. دراجة تاني اثنتان And then thalathu, 3. Darajatin, 3 bikes. Again, these are your examples.
The Cameroon.
Ooh. Well, I'm sorry, what's that?
I think that's 4, but 5.
5. Khamsun. Khamsun. Kha means sa. Sin. Khamsun. Khamsun. 6. 6. Sittun.
Thamanin.
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 Now.
After that is Tisab. That's 2 dots. That's a tab.
Yes. Where are we?
After Thamad.
Tis'un.
Tis'un. That's 2 dots.
Yes, 2 dots, yes.
Okay.
So all the ones you just wrote are feminine, but they don't have the term muta. And the ones that were previous, they had the term muta.
Are masculine, yes.
Right.
See, you have the Rajatu, the tiny. Okay, see, I got it.
Yeah, Darajatani ithnatani.
That's Thamanin.
I'm sorry, what's that?
Thamanin.
Thamanin. No.
Thamanin.
Shadda and Sittun is a shadda.
Over the top, yes. Mm-hmm.
9.
Tis'un. That's 2 dots, yes. That's the tap. Tis'un.
So, the first ones we did were masculine. These group we're just doing now is feminine, right?
Yes. Mm-hmm.
And I'm confused about, because the first ones we did had the feminine Tara Mafuka,
Mm-hmm.
but they're masculine.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, you didn't this year.
That wasn't a yawn, that was pain.
Oh.
Pain to go away.
It was?
Yeah, to go away. Trauma.
All right.
Ashroom.
Ashroom. No. Ashroom. No.
For the last one,
Thalathu.
Thalathu Darajatin.
10. Now.
Is that just an example of one way it can go, or whatever?
No.
Tun?
Okay, no, it wouldn't be 20 because you're dealing with numbers. You're dealing with the numbers, not 1 and 2, there's one rule, and then 3 and above, there's another rule. Grammatical. So yeah, there's a grammar rule for 1 and 2, which falls into it's really simple. 3 and above, that's something different. So actually it's 3 to 10, and then 11 and up, then that's something else. And then when you get into the 20s, and that's like, okay, yeah. So that will change. Yes.
So is this anomaly with the numbers?
It's not an anomaly, but go ahead.
Is this with the numbers only, or will you?
This
find
is with the
other words?
numbers only, no. This is with the, you're referring to
Where the masculine
using
and
feminine to, yeah, that's with numbers only.
So with the masculine numbers, for the third, for Thalatha Kutubin, oh, I see it.
Yes, kutubin,
Okay.
yes.
So then the first group are the cardinal, and the second group are the ordinal.
Yes. So, yeah, and,
We haven't done it.
oh no, we haven't done the order, we haven't done the order. I think he's referring to what you have in your hand now. We didn't get to that yet. You almost caused a riot. What?
That's
Yeah.
That's interesting, like husband, wife. Because I was over here tripping, I'm like, why doesn't, I didn't want to ask.
Yeah, we didn't, yeah.
Asked, okay.
Yeah.
Got you, baby.
Okay. Alhamdulillah. Okay, yes.
I don't know if anybody asked this or not, but commanding.
Thamanin, with the kasra.
Yes.
So thamanin with the kasra is mabniyun in mu'araba.
Why?
Why? Oh, some things you don't ask why, it just is.
You just roll with it, all right.
It just is. That's how it is. That's how it's spoken. The number 8, specifically the feminine, not the masculine. The masculine falls into the where it's mu'araba. The feminine is mabniyun. Okay, so we're moving on now.
Wahidatun, is that the first one?
Wahidatun. Question?
One more question.
Yeah.
Which one do we use for like 1, 2, 3, 4? Is it a masculine or feminine? We can use both.
No, generally when you're counting like that, it depends on what you're counting. People, like I said, no.
Go ahead.
So
money.
Again, like I said, you have to, Arabic is very specific like that. So you have to know what you're counting. And I gave you the example of the chair versus the table.
Oh, okay.
The chair is masculine, the table is feminine.
Oh, so it switches.
Of course, again, you're using the numbers based on the gender of whatever it is that you're, the assigned gender. Yeah. So I did warn you that it was, it's going to get a little rocky. This is just the beginning, so I'm going to need you to loosen up a little bit. You may want to bring some Tylenol, Motrin, something like that.
That's drugs.
That's a halal version. You get a headache, you take some Motrin. Bring a cup of coffee. That may not work. You may want to bring some chamomile or something like that.
At the bottom of the page, you have the numbers will always come after the noun. I'm sorry. At the bottom of the page, you have this rule. The number will always come after the noun in the sentence.
Yes.
Can you do an example yet?
No, these examples are on page 28, which we've already had.
Oh.
We've already had examples, and you already see that. So the number comes after, not before. So it's the opposite in English. So one book in Arabic is book 1 or kitabun wahid. It's the opposite.
Like Spanish, Casablanca.
I'm sorry.
Like Spanish, Casablanca is so white as White House.
Okay. There you go. Yes.
So for number 3, in the masculine and feminine, it switched to the number first and then the.
So yes, thalathu darajatin, yeah, and thalathatu kutubin, absolutely. So it would not be كتب ثلاثة, that doesn't work. Or درجات ثلاث, that does not work either. So that order does change.
But what about 4, number 4?
It's the same.
It goes back to.
It's back to. No. Yeah, it's أربعة كتب. خمسة أقلام, for example. ستة كراسي, 6 chairs. كراسي. سبعة مساجد, for example. Those are the numbers. 3. Oh no. No. Somebody said something? Yes.
No, you were saying 7 2 match. You might say 7.
Yes.
You have to use the plural for those words after 3, right? 3 and up.
Oh yes, absolutely. And I'm trying to avoid getting into the tamyiz or the clarifying now, which is referred to as tamyiz in Arabic, because that there is complicated. Numbers are not simple in Arabic. I think you can already see that. Numbers are very, very, very complex. So, and I'm really not trying to go there now, because that's like, you leave here and you won't come back. And I want you to come. I need you to come back. I need you not to leave out of here waving the white flag. This is crazy. I mean, who can learn this stuff? But mashallah. So we're moving on now to the ordinal numbers. I'm assuming that we're done copying, inshallah, or at least the top part. So we have an awwal. And we're going to do the same as we did with the cardinal numbers. We're going to have 2 sets of numbers.
This is like the 1st, 2nd, 3rd, 4th.
Yeah, but this. Okay.
This is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 6, 7, 8.
The first is al-awwal. الثاني الثالث الرابع الخامس السادس السابع الثامن التاسع العاشر. And I'm sure you've already noticed that masculine numbers are visibly masculine. Yes?
Yeah, you can see the muscles.
الأول الثاني الثالث الرابع الخامس السادس السابع الثامن التاسع and العاشر. Now I'm going to ask you a question. I'm going to ask you about the presence of the shadda over the letter that follows the definite article. And okay, alhamdulillah. Some letters. There you go. Does everyone recognize that? That the shadda is there because the fa is a sun letter. Somebody?
Yes.
Yes. Here, the fa is a sun letter. The ra is a sun letter. Ar-rabi'u. The sin is a sun letter. As-sadisu and as-sabi'u. That does not look like a shadda, so I don't want anyone copying this. And, something interesting written down. The ta is a sun letter. At-tasi'u. Na'am? Good, alhamdulillah. And then down here, we're going to write the feminine numbers. And we have an ula. Al-ula. This is an alif maqsura nariya. الثانية الثالثة الرابعة الخامسة السادسة السابعة الثامنة التاسعة العاشرة. Okay.
Is that the year too?
Afaniyatu.
That need.
Nun, yes, afaniyatu.
Me, yeah. Me. You got need.
Me, afaniyatu.
It's that need. That need.
No, not that.
That one here.
Athalithatu, that's a noun.
That leela.
Lithatu, lithatu, athalithatu. Athalithatu. Yes. On page 28. Okay. Before you leave, so exercise number 1, this is part of your homework. You're gonna have to use the internet. Google.
Question
Here
right
we go.
It says write the number.
Google. Yes, you will Google that, and you'll find your answer unless you, of course, you already know it. But you're gonna rely on Google.
Really,
No.
Yeah.
We get
Number
it
page.
now?
No. The actual numbers. 1, 2, 3, 4.
Yeah.
You'll find those.
The cardinal numbers of the year?
I'm sorry.
I'm
For the cardinal numbers, yes.
1 to 10.
Yes, 1 to 10. Yes.
In English.
No, in Arabic.
Right, numerical center.
I want you to write the Arabic numbers.
Oh, like what? Cardinal, like what? I know. I got you.
1 in English looks like this. 1 in Arabic looks like this.
I know.
Got it?
Yeah.
All right.
So it's definitely-
Don't you Google this. It will be too easy for you to write 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Really? No. I want you to go on your computer and find the Arabic numbers. No. 1,
I got you.
2, 3, 4.
I got you.
1, 2, 3, 4. What does أربعة look like? Not how do you spell أربعة? Right? Na'am. We're not done. We still have, so, you know what? We'll save that till next class, because I know that I've given you guys a ton today. But I wanted to talk to us, I wanted for us to go over time. So I think that's something you would find enjoyable. Because again, we're using the numbers to tell time. Yes. So, all right. Now, so last week we had the interrogative articles, and one of them, the one that in reference to Calvin was Calvin. So if you're asking someone about time, how would you phrase that? You would say, Kam as-sa'a. The word sa'atun means, who knows what the word sa'atun means? An hour. Sa'atun means an hour. I'm erasing the top only. So in essence, you're asking, what is the hour? Kam as-sa'a. As-sa'atu. What time is it? Sa'atun means an hour, right? As-sa'a, sa'a means time as well. So you would say, as-sa'atu, if it's 1 o'clock. Wahidatun. Wahidatun, and if it's afternoon or morning, AM or PM, you would say sabahan or masa'an. Sabahan means morning, and masa'an means evening. Morning, evening. الساعة الثانية صباحا or مساء. You want to get fancy? You can say عصرا. What does عصرا mean? Afternoon. Afternoon, absolutely. عصرا. So you can say مساء, عصرا. But if you were to say الساعة الثانية عصرا, I'm sorry, مساء, everyone would understand that you mean that it's evening. When I say evening, meaning 12 noon, okay, and beyond. الساعة الثانية, for example. الثانية. And مساء or صباحا. Just want to share that, in case you were wondering.
So the question is, what is the?
What time is it? What is the time? What time is it? What is the time? Your answer would be as-sa'atu. You start with that. As-sa'atu. We actually, the first one, wahidatun, we had one instead of al-ula.
Sa'atun.
As-sa'atu wahidatun. It's 1 o'clock.
Oh,
that's getting fancy. Yeah, we're not doing that yet. Yeah, as-sa'atu al-khamisatu is 5 o'clock. As-sa'atu as-sabi'atu is 7 o'clock, for example. Okay. All right, so you have your homework. You have your examples on page 28. Kitabun wahidun, imra'atun wahidatun. What does imra'atun mean? Quickly. Woman. Imra'atun is a woman. What's the opposite of imra'atun? Rajulun. And I told you the plural of imra'atun is what? Nisa'un. Na'am. الدرس الأول First lesson, and al-kalimatu al-thaniyatu. The second word now. Alrighty, so with that, inshallah, we are going to wrap up. As always, there's something that wasn't clear, that you need repeated. I would prefer if you ask during class, but if you don't feel comfortable doing that, that's okay. You know, I am available. I'm available today for a few minutes next door after we pray. If you have a question or something, or here, if you have a question or something, we can go over that. Otherwise, if you go home and you encounter something that's confusing to you, please write your questions down, and inshallah, we'll go over them when we meet again, inshallah, next week. All right, so we will close with dua, inshallah. سبحانك اللهم وبحمدك نشهد أن لا إله إلا أنت نستغفرك ونتوب إليك. السلام عليكم ورحمة الله. And I again, please study. Please study. It's important. It's imperative. Your success depends on you spending some time going over your vocabulary. You've got nothing but vocabulary at this point. So I'm hoping